sure we'll have a few people come in that are late. But, what I want to do is introduce our guest speaker. For those of you who have been in this science group for the last 6 months, we've been doing video presentations, and today we have an actual live speaker, so we're happy to have somebody up here that can tell us where we can ask the questions and get an answer from somebody who knows what's going on. So Jim started martial arts training at the age of 16, and he has a 5th degree black belt in Korean Kung Fu, and he's also studied other martial arts, including Tai Chi and Qigong, which is what we're doing every Thursday at 11:30. So he's also been training, studying, and teaching these arts for 40 years. And he's a recognized expert in Asian bodywork therapies, including acupressure, Tai Chi, and also Qigong. He specializes in teaching exercise to improve chronic conditions in people of all ages, but particularly with people our age. So he's worked with Parkinson's disease patients throughout Florida Hospital and continued giving lectures with the hospital through its Advent Health programs and the Winter Park Health Wellness Center, among other venues. He's also co-authored a book and produced numerous journals, graphic charts, study guides, and YouTube videos on martial arts, fitness, self-improvement, and health and well-being exercises. And you can see a lot of the stuff here that he hands out to our class in Tai Chi every Thursday. So he's been teaching here here at the club for over 2 years. The class meets at 11:30 every Thursday. There's a small fee of $12 per class for the lessons. I can attest that they are well worth every penny of that. And he does offer discounts for getting like 10 or however many classes you want in advance. So today he's here though for free on this one.
A little bit of a marketing thing, you know.
Some of you may remember that a couple of years ago he did a health and wellness lecture on acupressure for us. And in May of this year he received his bachelor's degree in holistic medicine. And he's offered to do a series of lectures on what he learned. So we're all going to have that same degree at the end of all of these things. So today is going to be an introduction to the topic of holistic medicine and a preview of what he's going to be talking about for the next few months. And I know that all of us know that science has validated some of these concepts of Eastern medicine. So for the next couple of months, he's going to show us how to incorporate, how we can understand and integrate some of these procedures that will make us healthier. So please join me in welcoming Jim back as our lecturer this week.
Thank you very much. So there's so many things that Jeannie just said that I can hit upon. I don't want these lectures to really be lectures as much as discussions, where if I start to talk about something and you have a question, I encourage you to, say, hey, Jim, what about this or that? So it's not just me talking, off of a script as much as us talking in an atmosphere where we can, explore different topics, that it's not just me talking to you, if that makes sense. So one of the things Jeannie said that I got to hit upon is she said to our age group, but she didn't really include me in that. So I just turned 60. And that's kind of interesting because my brain had to recalibrate a little bit when that happened, because my son, who's 24, he's been telling me I'm old, I'm getting old, right? So then I was like, well, what's that magic date? When does that happen? I'm going to be 60 in a couple months or whatever. He's like, well, when you get to 60, yeah, that'll be old. So I turned 60, I'm doing all this stuff, teaching, learning. We were just in Utah a couple days ago, my family, for a week, and we're hiking and doing all this stuff, and it's like, you're 60. It's like, okay, 65. When you hit 65, then you're old. It's like, well, what is this? When are you really old? Who cares? It's how you feel. The things that I've learned when I started, when I was 16, I couldn't teach to other people. I had to get a bit older to be wise enough to explain it. So my audience often were people that were twice my age, and I'd be talking about health and fitness and stuff, and I really didn't get the message across because I was so young. It's like, well, of course you're in good shape. You're 19 years old, or you're 22, or whatever the age I was at the time. But now that I'm 60, I am kind of in the room with you folks, right? You might be the youngest one in the room today. But who cares? It's all a matter of, where you're only as young as you think you are, that kind of thing. So I have a list of topics that I'm going to kind of run through. But again, if somebody asks questions, we might get off on a little bit of a tangent here and there, and we'll adjust that. We'll talk about stuff if it comes up. So I printed off a couple of these things, and I have extra copies to take with you. But this is kind of like the the comparison or the intersection of what fitness is, what health is, what wellness is. So many people are interested in being fit. I go to the gym. I was at the gym for the last 3 months working on my cardio for going on this Utah hike. Just because you're fit, you have muscle tone, you might be of a particular weight, doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. They're 3 different things that all connect. And that's where we kind of get into holistic. It's like, what, holistic? You would think holistic would be spelled with a W, wouldn't you? Whole? This is what I thought when I first started hearing about it years ago, the catchphrase, holistic. It actually should be with an H, though. Why does that matter? It doesn't. It's just how the words came about. Holo, H-O-L-O, is a Greek word. It means whole. So it's like, spell with a W, spell with an H, who cares? It's the same difference. When we talk about holistic, though, whole, it's the mind, the body, and the spirit. And often people get a little squirrely when you start talking about spirit. It's like, don't get into my beliefs. Call it whatever you want. It could be awareness, self-awareness, realization, a purpose, mind, body, whatever that extra thing is, kind of the X. Most people will say, when you press them, what are the most important things in your life? And they'll say, my body, my mind, my church, my community, my family, whatever. And then you go, well, what are you doing on a daily basis to maintain that? It's like, those are the most important things, but how often do you go exercise? Whether it's the gym or walking, how often do you spend time with the family? How often do you have social interactions? So oftentimes we say these things, but it doesn't coincide with our actions. So all of this stuff kind of links together. When I talk about one thing, I might come back to it. So when we're talking about holistic, I got these little wipey things here. So if there's too much of downtime between me wiping, you guys can talk amongst yourselves and say, I really like that part or this part. So we said mind, like my little board here, body, and we can say spirit, awareness. I think purpose or meaning might actually be a little more inclusive with that. So you decide, right? So we look at this sometimes like it's new, in American culture. It's like, mind, body, and fitness, mind, body, and spirit. This is something new, metaphysical stuff. In Asian culture and Indian culture, it's been around for thousands of years. Mind would be shen. So you get a little Chinese terms here. Body is jing. And spirit, we'll put that with chi for now, just to see the different Asian terms that they use for this. I might have switched a couple of those. Why is that important? They call it the 3 treasures. Without those, what do you have? So mind, body, and spirit. Again, keeping in mind this holistic thing. This is my holistic toy. Anybody ever seen one of these? If you got grandchildren or kids, they might play with these things. So it's a tensegrity model. It's a 3D shape. Anytime you touch or pull on one part of it, another part is affected. And we know this. You stub your toe, probably going to curse, right? In the middle of the night, you stub your toe, and then it's like, having a hard time getting around. I can't go out today. My toe's black and blue. So your physical health down by your toe affected your whole day. Somebody upsets you, says something that gets you a little bit, out of whack. Next thing you know, you're sitting at home complaining about, go out for the rest of the day. So again, all of these things are connected, mind, body, and spirit, right? So let's give me some room back. Okay, you're free to talk, right? In our current culture, with the push with hospitals to kind of meet this need for holistic health, but at the same time, they don't want to lose customers. People are sick. That's customers. If everybody's healthy, come on, they're not going to go to the hospital. It works that way. We have what we call those pillars. So if that's the mind, the body, and the spirit, our American culture with the medical industry has looked at it as pillars. They'll call it 5 pillars. So they'll still have mind, body, and spirit, but maybe they'll call it emotional. And then they'll also add in nutrition. So this is kind of like a building here, right? The building is you. That's the foundation. Still comes back to the mind, the body, and the spirit. Whatever things we want to add on the top, it still comes back. So 5 pillars. Let's go one better. Let's go 6 and add financial. Now we got 6 pillars, 7. I think you can get up to like 15 of them. So it's like, here's another floor, and we got education. How smart are you? That's another pillar. Your job. Do you like your job? Finances. How much money do you have in the bank? Emotional. Social. How many people are around you in your circle? Nutrition. Physical exercise. How well do you manage your emotions? So it ends up being kind of like an upside down pyramid. All comes back down to here. So no matter how you want to, repackage it and market it, our country loves marketing. You got to make a buck. If you're not happy, what's the point, right? So these down here, if we want to look at how it connects with science and biology and all this, your mind on the basic level is really psychology. Your behavior, it's your mind. And that also connects over to your spirit or your awareness. Your body is chemistry. And physiology. I guess you could say biology too if you want, right? I don't know if I spelled that right. So, I go to college and, I fill in the blanks from things I've been learning for 40 years, but now I should know the medical terms because that's what I've been working on for the last 4 years. So I should be able to spell physiology, right? You would think, right? So, I'm sorry?
Chemistry is our life.
Thank you for being aware. But do you see how there's intersections? Your mind affects what you think, right? What you think affects what the chemistry is, what you put in your body, how you move your body. Your body is its own pharmacy. We produce chemicals, which is another part of the discussion. The chemicals that are produced in your body, you can go to the drugstore or the doctor and get them. A lot of them are already in your body if you're moving your body or if you're breathing in the right way. So that brings us to something we need to do before we get too far into the class here. It's a little exercise. I like to do an exercise early in the class because it kind of puts everybody back in the room. If I'm boring you or if something doesn't make sense, you're already kind of like checking your phone or like what's coming next. If we do something with our body that our mind has to engage our body with, it kind of puts us all back in the room. So here we go. You got your feet in front of you. Try to point your toes straight as opposed to out here or doing this stuff. Move a little bit more towards the end of the seat so as to take this away. This is kind of comfortable when I have my back up against the rest, right? But if I get my hips towards the front, now I have to rely upon my posture to straighten my body, right? So my feet, I want to be out so that my knees are not as high as my hips. So right here, I'm still about as high. Either the same level or a little bit lower, as opposed to this. Or even if my feet are flat, I'm constricting the blood flow down to my feet, right? So here's good, there's better. Shrug your shoulders. Feel that tension that you have in your neck, and the muscle from your neck to your shoulder, the trapezius. Relax, let that drop. So if I go all the way down, like I'm trying to touch my hands to the ground, now I have tension going the opposite direction. So I want to be somewhere between here and somewhere between that. So it's kind of in between. Put your hands on your knees with your palms up. Now, do you see what I'm doing? I'm giving you all directions, right? And you're just absolutely perfect in following this. One or two of you might not even be doing it. I didn't even notice, so you're good. What's happening when I'm giving you all these instructions is you're taking your thought from everything that's going on around the room and you're putting it into you. Whether your foot's in the right spot or not, or your shoulder's up, it's not really the issue. It's you're trying to engage your body and mind at the same time, right? So from here, I try to make my head touch the ceiling. There's no way I can touch my head to the ceiling. If I tilt my chin up, I'm definitely not going to touch my nose, right? This ain't going to happen. So it's more of a sense, like if I came and picked you up by your head and pulled you towards the ceiling. So I'm trying to make my spine, instead of it being like this, more like this. So it's the sensation that I'm trying to touch the ceiling with the top of my head. If my shoulders are relaxed, it again makes it feel like my head's a little bit higher. So try to breathe through your nose. You can relax your eyes a little bit. Nothing to see here. You don't need to strain and look at my shirt, you know, symbol on my shirt or whatever. Just relax your eyes. And as you continue to do this, keep breathing deep. In through your nose, out through your nose. If you can, continue through your nose, right? Some people will find it a little difficult with allergies and stuff. So in through your nose, out through your mouth is okay too, but preferably in through your nose, out through your nose. All right? So many of you might be moving your stomach, your diaphragm. Many of you might not be. So put your hand just below your sternum, you know, the bony part at the end of your ribs in the center. Put your hand there. Put your other hand like over your heart, because that kind of gives you, you know, coverage of your lungs. Now continue to do that same deep breath and see what's moving. Is your bottom hand moving? Or is your top hand moving? If neither of them are moving, we need to stop the talk. Somebody needs to go make a phone call, right? No, that would be shallow. If your hands are not, if neither of them are moving, you're breathing pretty shallow, okay? If your top hand is what's most moving, is what's moving more, that too is shallow. If your stomach moves with your hand, then that's diaphragm breathing, all right? So you can stop doing this now, right? Kind of get the idea. If we do about 3 minutes of that, your brain is now being tricked into thinking that you're more relaxed. It's like, oh, 3 minutes. There's maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, who knows? Maybe you'll go to sleep. So you start to trick your brain into changing how the nervous system is reacting. Why is that important? So back to my board over here. Everybody's good with this. Nobody need to take pictures or correct my spelling anymore. We're ready to move on, right? No, I appreciate it. That's engagement. That means you're paying attention, right? All right. So I tried to use a dry eraser last week or 2 weeks ago when I did this at a different speech, and the dry eraser did not work. So I learned my lesson, and I went and got some Windex. So who thinks breathing is just something that we do? Either you're not doing it or you are doing it. Does that fit into most of your definition of breathing? Or,
not doing it, you're dead.
that's not good, right? But does that mean if you are breathing, you're fine?
No, it means you're alive.
Okay. So that's pretty binary. It's a yes or no, on or off type of thing, right? All right. I think we're almost ready to continue here.
Iron lung machine, you're still alive, but you're not really breathing.
Yeah. So here's what I'm getting at. So when we breathe normal, it's about 12 breaths per minute. Sometimes as much as 15. All right? So if you just consider breathing, I'm alive, that's great. But if you're up in the 12 to 15, that means that your nervous system is constantly thinking that you're in the flight or fight mode, which some of you have heard of that before. It's stressful, and it puts a lot of chemicals in your body that you would use if you were, running from a tiger, not having food for a couple days, and you're scrambling trying to find food. It's not a healthy place to be. That's where a lot of people hang out in 12 to 15, people in high stress jobs. So if we get down to 10 breaths per minute, that's where this thing happens. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what happens when you fall asleep and your body's recharging and digestion kicks in, and that's what we do when we're practicing Tai Chi. Try to get into that mode so that the body is actually healing while we're doing the exercises. So this breathing up here is about 2 breaths, or 2 seconds. Takes you breathe in, you breathe out. So that's not really that deep. It's a very shallow way of breathing. So aside from you not getting enough oxygen in your body, you're not moving the diaphragm. Diaphragm moves the organs. They bump into each other. You're gonna fall asleep. I caught that. See, you're working on your breathing, right? So That means you need more oxygen. That's what that stands for, right, when you yawn. So if we do 10 breaths per minute, that's about 3 seconds. 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out. That's not that much. You do that while you're driving. You know, you sit there and you take a sigh. So you get to 10, now you're a little bit more relaxed. But you got to do it for about 3 minutes. If you don't do it for at least 3 minutes, you got 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, 3 minutes, then it starts to change something with your stress. You stop getting cortisol. You start getting 4 other chemicals in your body. So I didn't want to do a whole lot of math because people get lost in the math. It's like, oh, you're talking 3 numbers with this, 4, 5, 10, I don't know. One more thing we got to get through with breathing. So it's called dose. Everybody needs their daily dose. Daily dose of what? Caffeine. You know, maybe the pills, you know, that thing that's got all the days. You know, we are a culture of a pill for every ill, right? We got that. Daily dose of alcohol, daily dose of nicotine, you know, whatever it is, right? Let's turn it into a more positive thing, though. Instead of it being like an addiction thing, let's use D for dopamine. That should be an A, right? Yeah. Oxytocin. And you see how I go from capitals to lowercase too? Serotonin. And endorphins. You've heard of all these. These are all real popular. So they use dose kind of like the acronym because then it's easy to kind of remember and connect it. You need a dose of them. Dopamine, these are all activated. This is your internal chemistry, your internal pharmacy. Kids are on a bunch of these, adults are on them. Dopamine, that's the, I feel good, I'm rewarded, have some chocolate, something sweet, somebody giving you praise. Those are ways you get it without the medicine, without it being artificially added into your body. Oxytocin, that's nurturing, like when a mother and a child are together, father with their boy, that nurturing type feeling. But we do it too, like when we're teaching and instructing, helping people in community service. That's how you get it internally. Serotonin, I believe that's your anxiety and depression and kind of somewhere in between there. Bipolar, people are on one end of the scale or the other, so they're taking these type of drugs. You can, again, through breathing, slow down your breathing, and you can internally start to manage these. Endorphins, that's usually from physical activity. When you do something strenuous, something that exerts you, afterwards, you get this rush of neurotransmitters. These are all neurotransmitters. Sometimes people call them hormones or chemicals. They're neurotransmitters. They travel like that. If it's a hormone, it takes longer. It goes through the body. So that is our daily dose. So look at the numbers still here. If we get down to, how do we do it? We do 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out. What is that? 8. That's 7.5 breaths per minute. My favorite is 4, 4, 4. You can try this too. You don't need to adjust your position or anything. It's called box breathing. So each part of the breath is a 4 second. So in your thought, you put 4 seconds to breathe in, 4 seconds you hold your breath, 4 seconds to exhale, another 4-second pause. We often do that in my class with the Tai Chi and the Qigong. That gets your breath down to, anybody do the math? 3.7 breaths per minute. Meditation, that's how you do it. Meditation, different topic, but as long as I brought it up, could be gardening, listening to music, drinking wine, cooking, working on a car, working on the patio, sewing, Tai Chi, Qigong, Pilates, weight training, running, walking, all have meditative aspects to them. If the person's aware that that's what they're doing, then it's like, oh, yeah, I'm meditating, I'm going for a walk. So all of these different things are things that I cover in my class, but usually 80% of my class we're talking about, or we're doing the movement. 80% of it's physical, 10%, 20% I'm talking and doing this. So at this class I'm talking a little bit more. Any questions? Yes. Hey there.
So you said it a couple times, when you do your deep breathing, it should be for at least 3 minutes. Why is that
It takes 3 minutes for the nervous system to reset. So this is my understanding with how that works. So if you just do, like, you're stressed out, some situation just happened, someone tells you to take a deep breath. Usually that's the worst thing because people go on the defensive and it's like, what do you mean? Don't tell me to take a deep breath. I got it. That's usually the response, right? But if they do, it's like, okay, I'll take a deep breath. I'm stressed out. Okay, back to the stress. One breath isn't going to change the nervous system and the chemistry in your blood. It takes about 3 minutes for that process to happen. On the other hand, going the other direction, there's a tiger at the door. I need to run. You guys, I only have to be faster than you guys to get to this side of the room. The nervous system will adjust really quick going the other direction. But to go to the relaxed state takes about 3 minutes or so. Good question. Any other questions on this particular part of the topic? Yes.
Why, I always was taught in through the nose, out through the mouth for breathing. So
That has
why-
benefits to it, yep.
Yeah, but why in through the nose and out through the nose? What is the benefit?
Oh, so the main thing is in through the nose. That's the main part, the important part. Breathing out through the mouth is okay, but the main part is the in through the nose because that puts humidity into the breath. It promotes this nitric oxide that's produced in the nose and some of the other tissues of the body, which helps your circulation and opens up the arteries and the veins. When you start to breathe out through the mouth, you have a tendency to dry your mouth out. So that's why you try to stay away from that. So as you're doing this, say you get to 3 minutes of that type of breathing. At about 3 minutes, the airflow across your mouth starts to dry your mouth out. So now instead of thinking about your breathing so much, you're thinking about getting a drink of water or moistening your mouth by activating your saliva glands. So subtle difference, but it does make a difference. When you start getting deeper into, so again at the beginning I talked about mind, body, spirituality, and that might be awareness or purpose. Some of the deeper meditation practices, you want to swallow your saliva and conserve it. That's part of you. You keep the chemicals in your body because they have a purpose in your stomach. People that spit, are spitting it out, that in a way is them losing part of their energy. So that again, that's like a whole different level of looking at it. So try not to spit. Yes.
Jim, you taught us in Tai Chi that to keep the saliva going in your mouth, to touch your tongue to the top of the roof
Yep.
of your mouth,
Yep.
so you could breathe out.
You could be doing that out through your mouth, but the airflow is there. So ideally, you breathe in through your nose, tongue goes up. That helps activate the saliva glands. Tongue goes down. You produce it and you swallow it. But if the mouth stays open, you're still playing with the tongue. It's not the best way to do it. So, and again, a lot of these are up to the individual. If you do it long enough and consistently, you start to make your own adjustments with what works for you and what works best. So for most people, like in Orlando, I think during the summer, not most people with allergies, it gets to be difficult to breathe all through your nose. I have allergies. Sometimes it's difficult to breathe through the nose. But I'll still try in through the nose and out through the mouth if that's the case. Worst is out through your mouth, because then it's just very shallow, your mouth dries out, so now you feel, oh, my mouth is dry, and you're breathing shallow, so you're not getting the benefits of doing it. Any other questions on it?
Yeah, just that everybody has a different saliva rate. So, talk to a dentist or
Right.
a hygienist. They'll tell you some are desert mouths,
Right.
and some are gushers, that you can't shut them off.
Sure, yeah.
So, I think there's a certain amount of individuality.
Definitely.
Effect.
Definitely.
And if you've got allergies and you're taking something that's going to dry you out to help you with your allergies.
There you go. Yep. So yeah, a lot of this stuff, from the holistic point of view, it's not absolute. There's very much a lot of gray and individualism with it. So again, let me spend a moment or two to erase this. I'm sure you all committed this to your memory or took a picture with your phones if you want to do that.
Laughing affects the release of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Because my understanding, there's certain Eastern practices where everybody gets together and they have like half-hour, hour-long laughing sections. People feel
Yeah.
$1,000,000.
That's it. Yeah, that'll do it.
So that laughing has the same effect.
It can. Yes, definitely.
How about yelling? Because some people that build up all the stress want to put it on everybody else, and so they yell, and everybody else feels stressed, but they don't anymore.
Well, that's an interesting topic. Like at the start, I said we might go in a little different direction with a couple of things with that. So I just had a little bit of a conversation with this recently. You have people that walk into the room. Elvis Presley walks into the room. Everybody's going to be shocked for a moment, right? Even if it's an impersonator. But the energy level is going to go up because everybody knows who Elvis is. Like, oh, wow. Somebody else walks into the room and they're like this. Not that they're moving slow, but you can see that their energy is down and they're drained. So the other person, call it Elvis, anybody else that has just a little bit of energy and charisma, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm that person, right? So that would be what we talk about in this kind of environment as a energy sun. Sun, you're radiant. You're giving off energy and heat. Light, you're the light of the room. The other person might be the energy vampire. And as soon as they walk in the room, they don't need to say or do anything. They just walk in the room and they're going to drain you. And you know people in your lives that's just how it is. You'll find them in stores. Go to the grocery store. Person doesn't even say anything to you. You can just tell that they have energy drainer. It's just part of the way it is. The more you get comfortable with this whole breathing mechanism, meditation, other practices, maybe from the East, you start to be more sensitive to it. I can shake someone's hand. Hard squeeze, soft squeeze, I don't know. I kind of feel right away if they're legit, if they're a nice person, they're a mean person. I can feel it. I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. My sensitivity is a little bit different than other people. Doesn't take 40 or 50 years of training to do that either. Some people just have it. So like you're saying, very individual. That was another point I was going to get at. When we practice Tai Chi, this symbol comes up often. And usually the bottom part would be dark. The top part has a little dot. So oftentimes people will look at that and quote it as, oh, that's yin and yang. It's either this way or that way. Black and white, heavy and light. There is so much more to that symbol than that. That actually is not absolute. It's a symbol of change and adaptation. So like you're saying with the allergies and medication and people have more saliva than others, nothing is absolute. When someone comes into one of my classes, we're doing Qigong, Tai Chi, whatever the case may be, they might not be able to stand on one leg and do this or do that. Who cares? It's not absolute. For some person, this might be their ability to balance, and that's better than what they did the day before. And then after a while, maybe it's here, or whatever. So that's not absolute. Things are constantly changing, and it's all in relation. I'm old. I'm 60. My son comes in the room. I'm one of the younger people, maybe, by a year or two. I don't know how old everybody is. So it's all relative, right?
Yo.
Old.
Yo. Young old.
Young old. That's the new term.
Can you tie it all together as far as breathing and taking into perspective body weight, ideal body weight, lung capacities, residual volume, breath holding, how long can you hold your breath, oxygen levels, things that affect your breathing that are because of your body habitus or the environment you live in.
So I don't think I can summarize that like in a 30-second bit or whatever, but we could talk about it later after the class too. If your breathing is at a healthy level, whatever that might have been on that chart, regardless of if you're taking medications or you live in the north or the south, if you're still breathing at 12 to 15, you're probably still going to be stressed, regardless, if that's your norm, right? I have this watch that tells me what my regular resting heart rate is and breathing and all that stuff. So regardless of that, there still are healthy markers, right? So the better that your breathing is, the slower that your breathing is in general, means that your whole overall health probably will be better. If you're, say, I'm just throwing numbers out, if you're 80 years old and you're under breathing and your average is like 4 breaths per minute always, then that might not be good, because at that age, that number probably should be somewhere else. So I'm not a medical doctor to get into the exact details with that, but pretty typical between martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, Pilates, even like with weight training, running, the lower your breath rate is, the healthier the individual. And then to go with the heart, so say you're exercising, you have a resting heart rate, mine's usually about 60, plus or minus. Every day it changes, every week it changes. So for me, to exert myself, usually about 120, 140, I'm having a hard time talking. So I know that's my upper limit. If it goes below 60, it's like when I'm sleeping, I might go down to like 55 or 52 or something. It's not hanging around 40. So my heart rate, what's more important than having just the resting heart rate is how fast it can come back to that. So if I don't run. I stopped running years ago because of my knees, but I hike and do other activities, right? So if I bump this up to 140, what determines my overall health is how quick it comes back down to 60. Not that I can stay up at 140 for an hour. It's heart variability. How fast can it come back? People that get stuck and stay up there, usually that's going to be a problem. I don't know if that helps. Like I said, I'm not a medical doctor to get into that much detail with it, but overall, slower breathing rate,
Well, I need to lose weight.
10.
I don't lose weight. And I also know that if you're fat, your breathing rate's going to be faster.
Right.
So there's an optimal body habits.
You're probably at a spot where you need to talk with either a physician and or a personal trainer that's going to give you enough cardio. It's not going to give you a heart attack or a heart issue, so you do burn calories with increased metabolism, but also to be able to bounce back down. So balancing it out with other activities that keep you moving, but don't increase your heart rate up to 140 or whatever your maximum would be. So for some people, 140 is going to be a heart attack. So my son, he probably gets up to 160, 180, somewhere on there, because he was a rower, college kid.
And target heart rate based on your BMI and your age.
So now you're starting to get into diet. Oh, that was another thing. Along with this black and white thing over here with the yin-yang symbol, we're going to kind of keep moving along with that. So again, if you want to talk a little bit afterwards, or that might be another discussion with that. So everybody thinks that milk is good, right? Milk is good for you. But now you get older, it's like whole milk's not so good, right? So it's not black and white. Drinking alcohol, a glass of wine, not bad, right? Well, for an alcoholic, that's not good, right? So with nutrition and chemistry, anything you're putting in your body, that's not black and white. Ginger, that's a great herb. Everybody should take ginger, right? Well, for some people, ginger is not a good herb. Echinacea, golden seal, ginkgo, all the herbs that you see like at the grocery store that you can get over the counter. It's like, that's good for you, that's good for you. It's not good for everybody. So you need to do a little bit of research if you're interested in taking some of those type of chemicals.
Why would ginger be good for everybody?
Because your chemistry is different than everybody else's. So in traditional Chinese medicine and in Indian culture, Ayurveda, they look at the body differently than we do. They look at it as you have elements, earth, water, fire, metal, and those elements affect your body. So somebody that's a little more stocky, they might be more of a water person. Someone that has a higher, they're agitated, more type A personality, that's a fire person. And there's give and take and all that. That's not black and white either. So just because ginger is good for one person, if I run hot, if my body, like you touch my hands and it's always hot, ginger's not the best for me because it'll make me too hot. So you can get into pretty far going down the rabbit hole with that because everybody's chemistry is different. They call it constitution, those 5 different areas. Everybody's a little bit different with that. And you'll see that. Some people eat this particular food when you go out to a restaurant and you're like, oh, I can eat tons of that. Another person's like, no, I can't. Like onions. I love onions. I can eat onions all day long. My wife, nope. Give her an upset stomach. Ginger makes my wife nauseous from the smell of ginger tea. I take it to prevent nausea. Ginger settles your stomach, like when you fly or if you go on a boat. So that again comes back to that symbol right there. Not everything is black and white. So this is kind of interesting here. I find it interesting. I don't know if you do, but that's, come on, you're in my class here. Hopefully this is interesting stuff, right? So with the black on the bottom here and the white over here, they put a little speck of white here and a speck of black over here to show you that nothing is absolute. And then the center line is the in-between, kind of like the gray. So if you're a male, there's probably some things that you do a little bit on the feminine side. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a female, maybe there's some things you do that are a little more considered on the masculine side. There's the balance between it. There's no absolutes. You show me some big bodybuilder macho guy, and he might like gardening or something. Like, who cares? The stereotypical things from years past. So that's very relative, not just to your, exercise, but your diet. You have a glass of wine once in a while. Well, you burn it off too. You eat that piece of tiramisu. Okay, you balance it out. You do some other activities, or the next couple of days you don't eat, as much sugar or whatever. It's all about balance. So I'm going to continue to move on. Does anybody have questions on any of this so far? So back to the holistic thought of fitness and wellness. Does everybody know what health is? Health. See, this is giving you the time to talk or discuss. So what I consider fitness. Fitness is how well you move your body, the shape that your muscles are in, your cardio, if you can walk a certain amount, if you can stand up out of the chair, if you can get yourself off the ground, that's fitness. How well your muscles and your body works for you. Health might be the next level, where that encompasses if you're sick or not, if your digestion works the way it's supposed to, maybe your emotions, you got a good outlook. Wellness would be like the whole picture. You're putting it all together. So it's not just how well your body works, it's how you emotionally handle things, how you seek coping mechanisms for problems in your life. So that's where I would go with that poster. Is it the top one? Fitness, wellness, and health. So here's another idea. Those people that do try to stay in shape, it might be you, might not be you. Aside from if you don't, you have the option of just not doing anything. It's like, I don't care what I eat, don't care what I do for exercise, I just exist, for the day. A lot of people are spending time in restoration, trying to get their body back to do what they want it to do. I want to be able to lift my leg up, I want to be able to touch my toes, I want to be able to turn my neck when I drive. They're just trying to get back to what they had. Another level, once people feel that they kind of have some control over, what they're doing in their body and everything's working, you try to strive for some longevity. And that's kind of a buzzword more so these days. It's like they have retreats and, seminars and things like that, how to live longer. But what's the quality of your life? You're living longer, but the quality isn't there, is that a good thing? So then the next level might be cultivation. And these, you might ebb and flow between them. You might be trying to restore range of motion in your neck or your knees, whatever the case may be. Longevity, you might be watching your diet so that you're not putting as much garbage in your body. Again, it's the whole. It's the whole picture. Everything affects, another piece and part of it. Cultivation, this might be your sense of purpose. Or, like I said, your family, your church, community involvement, things like that. So it's good to be in one of these, kind of in and out of different parts of those. If you're not doing any of those and you're exercising, I'm not quite sure what you're exercising for, because you got to have a purpose, right? I'm just exercising. I'm just going to your Tai Chi classes, Jim. I'm going to your yoga classes. Well, if you're not trying to fix something, or if you're not trying to live longer, or if you're not trying to find some deeper meaning for what you're doing, I don't know, why are we doing it?
Maybe it makes you feel good.
Why does it make you feel good?
Physically, it makes you feel good because you're getting serotonin, endorphins, and
I agree, but I think it might go back into one of those.
Some people
Yeah.
just do it because it makes them feel good. Why do people do marathons? Well, some to win, some to challenge themselves, but a lot of them do it for the endorphin rush
Yeah, there you go. So, I think we could probably have short answers and we could have longer answers depending upon the individual and whatever their circumstances are. So part of this, though, connects to another thing I want to talk about. Did anybody ever hear of the Harvard Grant study or the study of adult development? See, I go to college, I learn a couple things, got to toss it out there. I'm not one of those people who it's like, I learned all this stuff, I got my head full of knowledge. Most of my knowledge from all this stuff came from doing it, living it. I learned about ginger root tea from my teachers who said, drink this. I'm like, what is this? They're like, shut up and drink it. They were Asian, they didn't speak a lot of English. So that's kind of how I learned a lot of the traditional Chinese medicine and some of these other things. The Grant Harvard study started in 1938 at Harvard, right? And what they did was they took a whole bunch of the men, because at that time, things were kind of lopsided in the culture and the men were involved in a lot of this stuff. And they did this survey that was supposed to go for a couple of years. So after 1938, a couple of years later, some of you know better than I do, World War II started. So people either went into the service or they went to college or some other option at that time. But they kept tracking the people. So this survey's been going on, the study's been going on up until now. So 80 years. I've known it called the Harvard Grant study, and the other name is the Adult Development Study. It might be part of it, because they interact with one another with this. Well, as I keep going, maybe this will coincide with the same thing. So over the 80 years, they didn't think it was going to go that long. They thought it'd go a couple of years, but then they said, let's keep it going. And I guess they have, people would come in and maintain it, and then they would pass on or hand it off to the next set. So it's been going on for 80 years. But the intention it wasn't what it started out, where it ended up wasn't where it started out at. So they didn't have women. Women weren't involved in it up until, I don't know how many years ago. So that they added on in women, and then I guess they added in other people too that weren't necessarily just from Harvard. They added other people. So there were three main things that came out of it, though. So this is where you can kind of look back. It's like if I was just 19 and I said, you guys really need to get in shape and do this thing or that thing, and you're like, you're 19, what do you know? Okay, so we draw upon something that's 80 years old. It probably means that these things were good, right? One of them was emotional. The people that were in it, and they asked them when they got into their later years, and they said that one of the most beneficial things for them over their lifetime was having control of their emotions. And, just being able to regulate it, having coping mechanisms. Unfortunately, we're seeing it today. You guys are all in this group of, you're older than me, most of you here. The younger kids these days are the generation of anxiety. My daughter, my son, they're right in there. If it wasn't for them having the physical outlet of rowing, that physical, just three hours a day training for 6 days a week, they probably would have been, sucked into that. That was an outlet for them to maintain their health and wellness. Definitely a mental experience, them being on the rowing team. So emotional was one of the main ones. Trying to think what the second one was. Relationships. People that did not have relationships didn't fare as well. And that could have been their family, coworkers, pets, relationships, something other than just them. That's the main part of keeping you healthy, regardless of if you're physically active or not. Have good control of your emotions, have good relationships in your life. And then the third one was having a purpose. You got to have a reason to get up. So when it gets to the point, you'd rather not get up, that's not a good thing. And that goes back to the longevity. It's like, why do you want to get up? I want to be around my kids. I want to be around my grandkids. I want to go to that event. I want to help people. This is kind of like the next phase of my life. Even though I started doing this when I was 16, I'm at the phase now where it actually shows maybe that I was doing the right thing. Whether it was a physical activity, whether it was the meditation, whatever I'm doing, it got me to this part right now. So this is what I'm planning on doing into my next years. So the purpose, ideally, if you can continue to do something that that you enjoy, gets you out of the bed, helps people, and maybe if you earn an income from it, the income is kind of like the least desirable part of it. The other parts, it's like, come on. Relationships are priceless. Having control of your emotions, that's priceless. Purpose, you got to have a reason to get up, and if you can make a little bit of money doing it, that's great, but it doesn't have to be. Does that all make sense? So what makes the difference between those people that can do this stuff? This stuff means, looking at this, maybe doing some kind of exercise, maybe managing your diet, maybe trying to build up your emotional stability, as compared to people that cannot do it. You got an answer for that, I'm sure. What makes us different? What makes you different? What makes you maybe not different? I don't know.
How the most important thing was social network, but including family. That it superseded diet, exercise, and everything else.
That's why I was over here on that side with that.
I do think it's really important because no man, woman is an island, and we're social beings.
Yeah, definitely.
So people that end up talking to themselves, basically having this, it's not healthy.
No, it's not. So that's why I want to do this. That's why I want to do it. Hopefully you guys like me enough to do it more with the series of these talks, because that is one of the most important things. Whatever the topic is, I got a zillion topics here on the table, things that we can discuss. But if you don't get out of the house, it's no good. You get out of the house, you be around people, sometimes you form other relationships. It compounds. It's just, constantly a ripple effect going out. So what I found makes the difference, you guys remember the teeter-totter? One of the most dangerous toys out there, right?
We loved it.
So, we grew up on this thing, right? Either it was my family, like my older brother, or the kids in the neighborhood, they would always jump off the heavy end, land on your butt, and it's like, yeah. So, it became not that popular of a toy. People got injured, a lot of kids, right? So this over here, the heavy part, that is the diet. Let's say nutrition, physical activity, control your emotions. Those are the things that are kind of hard. It takes effort. Over here, doesn't carry as much weight. We have desire. I have a real strong desire to control myself, but I fail. I come up short. I have a real strong desire to not eat that tiramisu. Real strong desire to be physically active, but I keep coming up short. So what I have found makes the difference that can push this down is motivation. We used to say when somebody didn't do, in my group with the teaching and martial arts and the physical class and stuff, someone wasn't performing, it was they weren't properly motivated. So that might mean you scream louder, or you make the class more interesting, or you offer rewards. Whatever the case may be, it's all, there's a psychologist, who was it, Skinner, the operant conditioning. It's like, give him a piece of chocolate, he'll perform better. Take the chocolate away, he won't do it. So what I've found is if you're properly motivated, you will adjust your emotions, your nutrition, your physical condition. So what's that motivation though? My mom's 96. Every day's a gift, right? She lives up in Chicago. I get to go see her every couple months. We've been going up a lot more often. My father-in-law's 90. So between my wife and me, we keep going up to see our parents, because the other one, my father passed away and her mother passed away. So it's like, our purpose is going up there to keep in touch with them. So my mother saw my son graduate. A couple of years later, now my daughter graduated. I graduated. So these are milestones. And she's 96. She's still hanging in there. So
Your graduation?
she saw the streaming. Because I went up to Vermont and she was in Chicago. She can't travel anyway. So she watched the streaming of my daughters and mine. And that's got to be like a highlight, a high point. So that's the motivation. I don't know if these things come into play so much. but that's the motivation for her having a purpose. So other people, like I did this Utah trip, 3 months before, they suggested, REI, the travel company, they suggested you get in better shape, whatever that shape may be, get in better shape. So for 3 months, instead of me just doing my Qigong, Tai Chi, and my martial arts stuff, I did more Stairmaster, treadmill, weight training, made my knees stronger, made my cardio stronger for 3 months. My motivation was I didn't want to be the guy on the trail that they had to airlift out, you know. And I know I'm in pretty decent shape regardless, but I just wanted to make sure. So I was not the weakest one in the group. I wasn't, you know, struggling. I did well. So that was my motivation. I didn't want to be a problem. I didn't want to be a burden.
I know nothing about you, but I can see what you've achieved in your life, and it's an ideal. But I haven't even measured, you haven't even measured, because of your background, you have discipline and dedication as part of your personality. And those constituents that you have are allowing you to accomplish what you're on the board and suggesting how it might become.
I would agree. I don't necessarily think you have to have what I have to be able to achieve this, but it definitely does help. And a lot of that came from my upbringing. My parents, they came up during the Great Depression, so they were pretty disciplined. They survived with less. And then with the martial arts training, that definitely put me into a different box where there wasn't a lot of dilly-dally is probably the right word. You know, it's like you either do it or get out was kind of the atmosphere that I was in. So I try to present that in a gentle way when I offer the class. I don't make people do things. I don't scream and yell. You know, that's kind of beyond what we're doing with our instruction in our group. But that definitely does give a bit of a foundation with it. So that brings us back to that training, the discipline. How do you develop that? So our mind is much more difficult to change. I want to be more patient. I want to be more tolerant. Okay, just do that. You can't just do it like that. It's not a switch you can flick on and off for the most part. Most people can't do that, right? But when we were doing that other thing where I said put your feet straight, put your knees straight, press your head up, you're disciplining your body. Once you can start to discipline your body and be aware of, oh, I'm not in the right spot, you know, my center of gravity's off. This is much easier to control than this, but it's a bridge. If you can do yoga, Pilates, weight training, swimming, tennis, pick whatever activity, gardening, there's a certain pattern, and it's a skillful means. If you're not a good gardener, the results show, right? You know, stuff dies. So you got to have a certain amount of skill with whatever. If it's an instrument, it has to get better for it to sound good. So skillful means with your body is what can make you start to have that self-discipline. And then you can apply it towards whatever those other things are. If you just do it cold, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just going to, you know, go on a diet for the next month. It's probably not going to last. If I'm going to go exercise, I'm going to exercise. You know, it's like you got to have a method, a pattern to make it skillful. So, any other questions? Because I don't know how much more time we can go here.
Yeah, I think we'll probably, well, we can stay in the room if anybody has to leave, and I haven't been meeting.
Is there any correlation between people who are enthusiastic about this field and being left-handed or right-handed?
I didn't hear the first part of your question. Correlation with what?
Between people who are enthusiastic about this field.
Oh.
Left-handed, right-handed.
I don't know if I could speak from a authoritative point of view with that. I'm lefty.
Yeah, I noticed.
A lot of people I hang out with might be lefty because of, you know, the martial arts and that. I don't think I've seen any major difference with it. You know, they say left-handed people are sometimes more creative. I don't think I could put it in a box and say that, though. All right, so should we finish up, Jeannie?
Yeah, do you want to talk about
If you
what
get-
you're going to do next month?
Oh, so kind of to circle back, I hate that term, but it's what it is, right? I would like to continue to do these. If there's enough interest, I have more than enough topics that we can change out and do other exercises, neck exercises, back exercises, headaches, balance, all kinds of stuff, how not to fall. But it comes back to people. You know, if you're not around people, you might as well just watch it on YouTube, you know, and get a book. But in the atmosphere of being in person, I think we all gain much more. Your energy gives me energy.
So, you know, with with Tai Chi or other practices, I'm wondering if they can, that art or science can have the same outcome as from a physical point of view as people going to rehab to strengthen, some particular.
Oftentimes people tell me they have a neck issue or a back issue. Backs and knees are the big ones though. And they'll say, I gotta have surgery, I'll see you in 6 months. And then I just kind of have to give them the warning ahead of time and say, the same things they're gonna have you do after the surgery will be things that I show you before you go for surgery. The same kind of knee stretches, they didn't just come up with them in the medical community. They've been around. A lot of them are yoga exercises. Yoga and martial arts share a relationship. So a lot of people over the years, I've seen phenomenal things. I've fixed my neck, shoulder, wrist, I had a torn ACL, torn meniscus, back is out of whack by 7 millimeters. I've fixed these things through doing the exercises. So it's a question, you want to do it before or do it after? It's like, you're going to do it anyway. So physical therapy has roots.
You don't need surgery, but you've got, obviously
Tremendous amount of exercises that can help.
Do stuff to avoid surgery.
My wife had back problems too, my daughter. They both did yoga and weight training with a professional personal trainer, not just somebody who's at the 24-hour fitness that just do this stuff. And they both avoided having back surgery or medicine, anti-inflammatories, and they wouldn't do my. Hard to teach your own family, okay? So they appreciate what I do, but they don't want to be learning from me. So we've done that, been there. So, but yeah,
Sorry, Dad.
you can do all kinds of stuff on your own or through the right channel. So, all right, I guess we're done for today. Be well, be safe, everybody. Thanks for coming.